Hello and welcome to Yes, I'm an Informed Investor series brought to you by Research and Ranking. The objective behind the series is to help investors learn, understand the challenges and benefits while investing in the stock market. And to help us with the same, today I have with me Mr. Aditya Papad, who is AVP at Research and Ranking. Welcome Aditya, glad to have you.
Hi Jigna and a warm welcome to all our viewers.
Aditya, one thing which I've normally observed is that investors keep on asking us a lot of questions on how many stocks should they own in a portfolio. We have come across investors who have as little as just 5 to 10 stocks, and we have come across investors who have as many as 150 stocks in a portfolio. So I just want to know, for the simplicity of our viewers, is there any art behind designing an optimum diversification?
I'll answer that question. I'll tell you that this concept of diversification, now this diversification is something which is neither new to our investors and nor is it that something which is totally rocket science or something. The basic premise of diversification is to reduce your risk. That means that instead of having just a very few number of stocks in your portfolio, you have a little more number of stocks in your portfolio in such a manner that the risk gets diversified. Now, we all keep hearing about things like don't put all your eggs in one basket. But some people tend to take that thing a little too ahead and they use too many baskets. So the problem that arises is that people end up having over diversification. Now, this over diversification could pose other problems as well. In fact, it has been found by a lot of studies that diversification beyond a particular point will lead to lower returns. So we need to have an optimum level of diversification.
So Aditya, you mentioned that if an investor keeps on adding more stocks to the portfolio, there comes a point where the returns diminishes. Can you tell me the key things or factors to consider while designing a portfolio so as to avoid over diversification?
Well, certainly. Diversification is done in order to eliminate, or rather I would say reduce the risk in a particular portfolio. Now, how much ever diversification we try to have, we can never get the risk to become zero. It can only be reduced further and further. But that can also happen only to a certain optimum point. Like say if you go on adding stocks to your portfolio, it does not mean that your risk will tend towards zero. In fact, adding more and more stocks will lead to more and more drag on your returns. So what will happen is that in effect is that the more stocks that you have in your portfolio, the more I would say like non-performing stocks that you have in your portfolio, the more it will damage your returns. I'll give an example to elaborate this point. See, you're driving a car and like you're wearing a seatbelt. Of course, all of us should wear a seatbelt, and you're driving on the left side of the road. You are at a very optimum speed. Now, this is the right kind of diversification, and it is taken in order to minimize your risk of an accident. However, does that ensure that the possibility of an accident is zero? No, it does not. In fact, if you take further steps, like in case of one, you put 2 seat belts, and in place of going at a speed of 40 or 50, you go at a speed of 20. So that doesn't help you. In fact, it becomes a drag. Your drive no longer becomes enjoyable. It is the same with stocks. An optimum level of diversification will bring in good returns and with a lower amount of risk. However, each new stock that you add to your portfolio will have a lower and lower impact on the overall risk mitigation.
That is a very well example given, the car driving one. But if you have to give an example in the investing parlance, what are the things, or I would say, how an investor, or what are the steps to be taken for an investor to, while designing the portfolio?
I'll tell you what happens is that I'll give you an example of an over-diversified portfolio. Let's say you have a portfolio of about 50 stocks, okay, and all of these stocks are having an equal weightage in your portfolio. Now, what will happen in that case is, say one or a couple of stocks or even 3 or 4 stocks, if they appreciate even as much as 50%, they will not have that much of an effect on the overall portfolio returns. So what will happen is that your selected number of stocks or a few number of stocks have appreciated a lot by say 40, 50 or even more percentages. But the overall portfolio returns will still remain pretty poor.
So Aditya, coming back to the quintessential question from where we started this whole episode is, how many stocks one should own in a portfolio? So, for the simplicity, if you can give me a number for investors who have been investing in the stock market and a number for the investors who have just started investing in the stock market, it would be great for us.
Certainly. See, first of all, what I would like to say is that there is no, there is no thumb rule or there is no specific number which can be given out. Like, okay, you have an X number of stocks in your portfolio and that's the right diversification. We cannot have that kind of a number. So, different people follow different approaches. Like broadly, what I've seen in my years in the stock market so far, that people follow three kind of approaches. In the first approach, which I would like to call as a concentrated approach, a portfolio would have say around 5 to 8 stocks or probably say about 10 stocks, but not more than that. Now what happens in this case is this is a high risk, high return kind of a strategy, and it is recommended only for seasoned investors and those investors who have a complete grip and complete knowledge of the stocks that they are having. So this kind of strategy will work for those investors who can themselves manage their portfolio in a very optimal fashion. Now the second kind of a portfolio which we'll have is probably at the other extreme. It will have about 40 to 50 number of stocks. Now this is typically the kind of portfolio that a naive investor or you can say a beginner can have. People tend to keep adding to their portfolio, saying that acha isne ye bataya, usne ye bataya. Different people have told me different stocks, so I have bought all those stocks in my portfolio. So what typically happens is this kind of a portfolio suffers from the over diversification syndrome that we spoke just some time back. And in this case, an outperformance or a super performance by even a few number of stocks in the portfolio will not have a huge bearing on the overall portfolio return. So this kind of pattern is not very healthy. Now the third kind, which I would like to call as the balanced method. In this balanced method, you can have about 15 to 20 stocks in your portfolio. Have those kind of stocks in your portfolio on which you have a complete grip, or at least you have a basic understanding of these stocks. Now, a 15 to 20 is much like a ballpark figure. It could be 13 or it could be 22, depending on the risk appetite of the investor and his or her experience. So 15 to 20, in my opinion, and even a few empirical studies have shown that this number tends to hit the spot right as far as maximizing your portfolio returns are concerned. So these are the three methods which are widely seen in the market and as far as investor psychology goes. But I would prefer the last method. That has been my experience so far, that this method gives the best possible returns. So that would be the right approach.
With these words of wisdom from Aditya, it's time to wrap up the Inform Investor series today. But before we say goodbye, as we all say, no matter how many stocks you have in a portfolio, the 3 golden rules to successful investing is research, research and more research. Keep watching this space for more informational videos on investing. Thank you. Thank you, Aditya, once again.
Thank you, Jigna. Thanks a lot to all our viewers.